Well, hello, Friday. How are we doing? We're just waiting for a few more people to join. Um, Hopefully, everybody got in and there's no issues with the links or the login or the registration. Hopefully, all that's working. Hello, Friday. Wow, this has been a extraordinary week to say the least to start the year, and I think we really need to think about our warm up. For those of you that are joining us for the first time, we do a little warm up. And I think it's especially needed this week. Um, we do a three-stage warm up for Neuro-Fitness. First thing is, you know, we need to breathe. It's been a really tough week and we need to do some mindful breathing. So I'd like you to all just take a second and do some at least one cycle of 4x4 mindful breathing, 4 exhalations or 4 inhalations through your nostrils and 4 exhalations through your mouth. Okay, do some mindful breathing. Put that tough week aside. Secondly, I'm going to have lots of information I'm going to share with you today that's going to help you set and achieve brain smart goals. That information, maybe you need to grab a pen or a pencil and make some notes because there's going to be a lot of it today that we're going to cover. But we also talk about the need to focus. You can't multitask. Remember, our brains are not wired to multitask. Only 3% of the world's brains are wired to multitask. The rest of us switch tasks, which really puts extra pressure on our brain. So for the next 45 minutes, I'd like you to really take a moment and just focus on what we're going to talk about today, because I do believe you're going to benefit from it. And the third thing is we talk about writing things down. Well, certainly you're going to be able to take some notes for today, but we talk about writing down one thing you're grateful for. And then write down that one thing you're grateful for right in this moment and write it down. I think that's going to help you. So for those of you just joining us, do your breathing warm up, your focus warm up, and you write down one piece of gratitude. Okay, today's topic, uber important. And thank you all for joining me on this topic, how to set and achieve brain smart goals. Now, this is no surprise, okay? Most New Year's resolutions fail. Most New Year's resolutions fail. Why do they fail? Well, they fail because of a lack of motivation and a lack of accountability. But we need to have specific goals in our life. It's proven that people with goals have higher performance levels and higher productivity levels and higher happiness levels than people without goals, because it gives our brain a sense of direction. It gives us a sense of purpose and a sense to move forward, and it activates the motivating parts of our brain. Remember, the default mechanism for our brain is bad is stronger than good. So we really want to do whatever we can to reinforce the good, to reinforce the positive, and to move towards the positive, and to rewire our brain maps to be more positive. So that's why goals are super important for our brains. What I'm going to talk to you about today is really not what you should do, because that's an individual choice. That's up to you. So I'm not going to offer you tips. This isn't about offering tips on things to do, but rather it's about offering you a brain smart guide for whatever you want to achieve, whether it's self-improvement, getting rid of a bad habit, learning a new skill, whatever you want to achieve. Let's do it in a brain smart way to give yourself the best chance of success. That's what we're going to talk about today. Because if you give yourself the best chance of success, how you do that is by creating new brain maps. And by creating new brain maps, you will give yourself the best chance of success. So what I'm going to talk about now is a framework, or what we're going to cover today is a framework for how you should think about your goals and how you should think about achieving your goals. We're going to talk about goal criteria for BrainSmart goals. And we're going to talk about 5 steps for BrainSmart goal setting. And lastly, we're going to talk about a roadmap for implementation success. So what is the BrainSmart tips we can take with us that will help us implement our goals? Okay, let's get started. What's a framework for thinking about goals? The framework for thinking about goals is, first you have belief. And then you want that, if you believe in something, if you at least believe in the potential for something, you then can start and take action, and that action will create a behavior. That behavior, once you follow through on that behavior, will show you a benefit. The benefit will reinforce the belief, which will then promote even more positive actions, which will create more benefits and more belief. But you need to start with belief. You need to start with belief. Our behaviors are driven by our emotions, and our emotions need to start from the positive and from the belief and the potential. So we have to start there, because if we start like by just saying, I want to do this, if you don't believe in the potential of something or the possibility of something, you're not going to take that action as strongly. So start with the belief, follow through with the behavior, you'll see the benefits, and then those brain maps will keep wiring, and positive behaviors and self-improvement and greater happiness will follow. All of this framework helps rewire the brain. Now, what about BrainSmart goal criteria? Okay, what do we do? What makes a good BrainSmart goal? I'm going to share with you some things about that. First, the goal has to be meaningful. It has to have a purpose. It has to be important to you. It has to give you a sense of purpose, and it has to make you happy. If I once had a friend of mine say to me, he's like, oh, my goal this year is to read more books. And I said, does reading more books make you happy? He says, not really. I don't like to read. Guess what? Do you think he achieved his goal? No. But let's take the book example. And let's say your goal was to expand your thinking, become more curious. Then reading more books may be one action to take to achieve your goal. Right? Think about what's really meaningful and important to you. That's the number one thing for BrainSmart goals. Number 2, make sure it's measurable. You have to be able to figure out, is it measurable, so we can measure our progress and measure success? How are we going to know if we get there? Now, the very physical things in our life are easy to measure, whether it's, reducing smoking, or losing weight, or becoming more cardiovascular fit. Those physical things are easier to measure. The emotional ones are harder to measure, but they're not impossible. And we can talk about finding ways to measure some of those more emotional ones. If you want to become happier, for example, maybe you can start journaling how often you feel gratitude versus how often you lose your temper, and start journaling and making notes of that, for example. But so the emotional feeling measurement is doable, and you just have to think about how you're going to measure it, how you're going to do it. And probably most importantly of these 3 is it needs to be motivating. It needs to be inspiring, and it needs to be inspiring to you, because what brain scans have shown that intrinsic motivation, or internal motivation is much stronger than external motivation. You know, anyone who grew up, if the parents talked to you and said, we want you to do this, or we want you to do that, or we want you to grow up and become a doctor, or we want you to do these things. If you're feeling external pressure, you're less likely to achieve that than if you're internally motivated to achieve something. So make sure this motivation is intrinsic, important to you, and motivating to you. Okay, those are the BrainSmart goal criteria. So let's talk about now, what are the 5 steps? What are the 5 steps that we need to take in order to set a goal, a BrainSmart goal? The first step, we need to dream. We need to dream. We need to imagine the promise or the potential of a future where we see ourselves 2 months, 6 months, 1 year in the future when we've achieved our goal. Paint yourself a picture. When I achieve my goal, then all of these things will happen. When I achieve my goal, then these things will come to fruition. Get as specific as possible. You know, the word imagine really triggers in our brain the same activity areas of the brain as a real event. So if you imagine these things and get really specific and paint a very specific picture, and then what you're going to feel like when you achieve your goal, what are you going to be doing when you achieve your goal? How will others recognize you? How will you feel about yourself when you achieve your goal? Put all those things into your promise and write it down and make that your dream. That's the start of a goal. When you're as specific as possible, the brain fires up all kinds of new neural pathways, which helps create new maps. Again, we want to rewire the brain. We need to rewire the brain in order to achieve new behaviors. And imagining the promise and the potential of the future fires up new neural pathways. Very, very important. And it's very important, as I said, to write it down, because you want to refer to it later. You don't want to write it down, stick it in a drawer, and then go, I forgot what my dream was. Look at it weekly, daily, if necessary, to remind yourself what your dream was, what your promise of the future is. Second step is to focus. You need to focus. If you try it, and what I mean by this is only try to do one thing at a time, or maybe 2 things at a time. Don't try to do 3 or 4 things. Don't say, I'm going to get healthier, be more productive, manage my time better, do this. Don't try to do all that, because you won't achieve that. It's the same thing like we don't multitask. We'll put our brains into overload and we'll diminish our chances of success. Focus on one thing at a time, at most 2. And if you're going to focus on 2, keep them separate. All right? Can you imagine a toddler crawling around the living room floor, and the dad says to the toddler, he says, son, mom and I have been talking, and we think, we like him this crawling stuff, but we really think that you need to get more mobile. You need to really mobilize. So what we're going to do is we're going to teach you to walk, we're going to teach you how to ride a bike, and we're going to teach you how to drive a car. Isn't that wonderful? Absurd, right? It's the same thing when you try to achieve too many goals at once. Take it one step at a time. Step 3, make it positive. What do I mean by that? We need to remember, bad is stronger than good. So we need to lean into the positive. We need to lean into the good. So rather than saying, I want to lose weight as a goal, affirm your goal in the positive. I want to be healthier. I don't want to stop smoking. I want to have more vibrancy, more ability to have less shortness of breath, more ability to have cardio fitness health, right? State your goal in the positive, not the negative, not the avoidance of something. Right? So state your goal in the positive. The fourth step, make your goal inspiring. Make it inspiring. And it has to be inspiring to you. Again, remember, it has to be motivating to you. It has to be inspiring to you. What do I mean by that? So when you have your goal, and let's say your goal is, I want to be more productive. Well, I had one client who we talk about really saying, I want to really make that more inspiring. It's a very solid, fundamentally important goal. I want to manage my time better. I want to be more productive. But how do you make it truly inspiring? And this individual took that goal and he really polished it up and shined it up. And he said, I want to take back my day. I want to own my day, and I don't want to have others own my day. Right? If your goal is to have more energy, very powerful, positive goal. But how do you make it inspiring? Well, maybe you want to state your goal as, I want to regain my swagger. The more inspiring you can make it, the greater chance of success. Now, how do you know if it's inspiring? Simple test. I would suggest that you really do the t-shirt test. What would you put on the front of your t-shirt? Would you put, I want to have more energy, or I'm regaining my swagger? I want to be more productive, or I want to take back my day? What would you put on the front of your t-shirt? That would be a good test of, is it inspiring or not? Do the t-shirt test. Step number 5, we talk about plan. You need to develop a plan. And what I mean by plan, a plan has 2 components. The first component of a plan is, what specific actions are you going to take? What specific actions are you going to take to achieve your goal? Okay? Write them down, and they need to be very specific. Right? What actions are you going to take that are going to help you achieve your goal? These actions may be done on a weekly basis, or a daily basis, or a monthly basis. But what actions are you going to take to achieve your goal? Second piece of it is to, how are you going to measure it? We talked about measurement before, but the other part of your plan is, how am I going to measure my progress? How am I going to measure my goal? Right? That's a critically important part of your plan. Make sure you document how you're going to measure your goal. That's the only way you can tell if you're being successful or not. And we're going to talk a little bit in the future about why that measurement is going to be really critically important on the implementation roadmap to success. Now, when you're thinking about your plan, the first part of your plan, what actions you can take, I want you to make sure that you don't create actions that are so big and so broad that they're all encompassing and they become too broad and hard to achieve. You know, if your action is, I want to run 5 miles a day, that may or may not be achievable to you. Don't underestimate the critically important success of small steps. Small steps can help you in a great way achieve your goal. What do I mean by small steps? Right? Here's what I mean by small steps. Because, like, for example, if you want to be more productive, maybe one of your actions is, I'm going to turn off my text alerts on my phone. Or if you want to be more productive, maybe you say, I have to limit my time on Facebook or social media. So how do I do that? So what I'm going to do is I can't not be on Facebook or social media, but I'm going to set an alarm on my phone to remind me that when I open up Facebook, that I only go on there for 10 minutes or 20 minutes or whatever's reasonable for you. That your action is when I open up Facebook, I'm going to set an alarm for 10 minutes, or that I'm only going to do Facebook between the time of X and Y during the day. Small actions make big results. Okay? If you want to run more, maybe the action you're going to take is I'm going to put my running shoes at the edge of the doorway between at my bedroom. So I either have to trip over them when I leave, or they'll remind me that I need to go do for a run, if that's what you want to do. If you want to watch less TV, okay, take the batteries out of the remote control. The simple action of needing to put the batteries back in the remote control will remind you of your goal, and it will limit your TV watching. It's been proven. And all of these things, these small actions, can make a big difference. Checking the calorie count on food labels has proven to be more effective at losing weight than exercise. Just the simple fact is, if weight loss is part of your goal, part of becoming healthier, if your action is, I'm going to check calorie counts, doesn't mean you're not going to eat or splurge on something that, may make you happy or fit right, or, you'd have to restrict yourself to certain things. But just the fact that you're checking the calorie counts, it will raise your self-awareness and it will help you lose weight. People who are trying to quit smoking, they did a study and they showed that actually people who just said, I'm going to smoke the exact same amount every day, had more success quitting smoking than people who said, I want to quit smoking. So if they said, count the number, I smoke 23 cigarettes a day, and I'm going to smoke no more than 23 cigarettes a day. If that's your action, they had greater success, because over time it just diminished, right? The broader, bigger, more ominous goal tends to fade away, and we really latch onto those small steps that really can change habits and really make a difference in. And that's the way our brains learn these things and rewire. So don't underestimate the potential and the power of small changes or small actions in your plan. Let's now talk about a roadmap for implementation success. I'm going to share with you 7 brainsmart tips for implementation success. Okay, ready to go? All right. The first one, action number 1. What do you think? I've said this many times. I said at the beginning of this call, you got a goal, you have to write it down. Now, it's just not me saying it, but it's actually been proven that people who have goals and resolutions, when they write them down, achieve them 40%, have a 40% greater chance of achieving those goals if they're written down than if they're not. The connection to our brain and the impact of rewiring our brain is 40% stronger if they're written down. Now, when you got that pencil or pen out and you're writing it down, don't forget to write down your promise or dream of the future. It also helps, once you've written it down, to actually read it out loud. Read it out loud. The more sensory things you can put into it, the more brain wiring happens. Read your goals out loud, daily or multiple times a day if necessary. Visualize your goal. You've written it down, you've said it out loud, but make sure you create that picture in your head, just as when you were doing your dream. Make sure you create that picture in your head that can paint that vivid picture of how your goal is going to help you become a better person or learn a new skill or eliminate a bad habit. Well, benefits of that, visualize it will help create that belief, that behavior, and that benefit for you, and all to the goal of rewiring our brains. Number 2. Okay, we've talked about this one as well. Measure progress. And I said, if you write it down, you have a 40% greater chance of success. If you measure your progress against your goal, you have a 50% more likely chance of achieving your goal. Now, the physical is much easier than the emotional, but the emotional and the feeling part of it isn't impossible. You can journal. Times I lost my temper, times I got frustrated, times I felt gratitude, times I got angry. You can journal those things and do a little self-assessment and say, this week I lost my temper 10 times. Next week I lost my temper 9 times. Great, we got some improvement. Make sure you measure your progress. You will create positive reinforcement in that loop of belief, behavior, benefit. That's important. The next one. Make sure your physical surroundings are supportive of you, not destructive of you. A lot of times we have triggers around us that create and trigger the bad habits or the avoidance of things we are trying to stay away from. A lot of people who are on weight loss programs have heard the things like, make sure the donuts or the pastries aren't sitting on the kitchen counter where they're within view. Right? I talked earlier about small changes. Eliminating the phone alerts, for example, is a productivity measure. Another one is, someone said that it really helped them when, they want for social media, they just deleted the app on their phone every single time that they used it, so that when they had to reinstall it, then they, it took an extra couple minutes, but it was just sometimes became a pain, and it wasn't that easy to just reach for, right? So the physical eliminate the triggers, eliminate those easy things to fall off the wagon, if you will. Talk about making the physical surroundings supportive. Putting your running shoes at the door was one example of that. I had a goal one time, and it was trying to do things and trying to be more focused on getting clear tasks done. So I created a clear jar and with colored sticky notes. And on each sticky note, I wrote down a task. And then when I was done with the task, I would crumple up the sticky note and I would throw it in the clear jar. And I could seeing the jar fill up with colorful sticky notes was a very satisfying thing that gave me a hit of dopamine. It was like, look at what I did. That's awesome. Now that may not be awesome to you, but it was awesome to me. So find out what works for you in your surroundings. That clear jar of accomplishments was a big thing for me. And so we'll find out what's a big thing for you. Okay, went back one. The next one. Create an implementation intention or mantra, right? What are you going to say? Say it out loud when you think you're struggling. Now, what an implementation intention is, essentially is to complete the sentence. When I feel blank, then I will blank. When I feel like eating junk food, then I will take a walk around the block. When I feel like eating a donut, then I will do stretches for 2 minutes. When I feel like getting angry, then I will breathe. Right? Whatever it is for you, whatever it is you're trying to achieve, that implementation intention is going to be very powerful in helping you rewire those brain maps. Okay, helps new maps creation, helps rewire our brains. And implementation, intention, or mantra is very powerful. You know, a lot of people have mantras or saying like, I'm gonna, today's the day, and yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery, today's a gift. That's a mantra. And if you say a mantra out loud, it's been proven that sometimes that has the same effect as 5 minutes of meditation. Right? So don't underestimate the power of having this that works for you and saying it out loud. Okay, that's really will help you in your roadmap to success. The next one, share your goals. Sharing your goals increases the accountability. Now, you can be accountable to yourself, but if you share your goals with someone, a colleague, a coworker, a loved one, sharing your goals and say, look, I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna report to you and keep you accountable. I mean, that was one of the greatest successes of, whether it's Weight Watchers, in the meeting format where people felt really motivated, like I have to go to the meeting to get weighed in because of the accountability of that. Or in the 12-step programs like Alcoholics Anonymous, I go to a meeting and I have to talk about my sobriety and things like that. So having your goal shared with someone will help you in your personal accountability and have the other person keep you in check. Sharing your goal is an important step. Here's a big one. You have to remember you will stumble. The path to success is not a straight line. The path to success will have its ups and downs. You will stumble. But you know what? It's okay. It's okay to stumble. Just relax. Take a deep breath. Don't give up. Don't judge yourself. And don't beat yourself up. Instead, figure out what can I identify as learning and how do I grow from this experience? That's the first important step. Step two, maybe you need to move the goalpost closer. If your goal, if all of a sudden you've looked and you're 2 months into your 3-month goal and you're not achieving it, maybe you move the goalpost a little closer and you write down, next week I will achieve this, or maybe it's a daily goal. So move the goalpost closer. Define the specific action you're going to do either next week or tomorrow that's going to help you get back on track. Right? Don't give up on yourself and don't judge yourself, because it's normal to recognize that. And the path to success is not a straight line. This is probably the most important one. You need to reward yourself. You need to reward yourself. Our brain maps crave the positive brain chemicals like dopamine and serotonin, right? And those positive brain chemicals will reinforce those maps that are being formed. That's what happens in that loop between belief, behavior, benefit. When you see the benefit, you will get that hit of dopamine and that reward. So you need to reward yourself. The positive emotions that you feel along the way will help rewire your brain. You could reward yourself, for example, when you achieve a milestone. So let's say you're measuring your progress and say, if part of your progress was, I'm going to achieve this over the next month, and I'm going to break it down into weekly goals. And if you achieved your weekly goal, reward yourself in a way. Maybe find out what's rewarding to you. It could be a celebratory dinner, or it could be as simple as just giving yourself a hug. Giving yourself a fist bump and go, I did this, right? I did it. Yeah, good for me. Right? I can do this. Reward yourself, whatever it is. Make sure you find a reward for yourself. Do that. That reward will be the icing on the cake for what we've talked about. Let's review. Let's do a quick review. Our BrainSmart goal criteria, are they meaningful? Are they measurable? And are they motivating? The steps: create a dream, create a promise of the future. When you achieve your goal, what will the future be like? What will it be like when you achieve your goal? Make sure your goal is positive, stated in the positive, not in the negative. You can always take a negative and turn it into a positive. State the goal in the positive sense. Make sure your goal is inspiring. Remember, what would you put on your t-shirt? Develop a plan. Plan has two components. Component number one, what specific actions are you going to take? What specific actions are you going to take to achieve your goal? And don't underestimate the small actions. They're crucially important. And the last piece of it is of the plan is to make sure you figure out how you're going to measure your plan in order to recognize if you're successful. Let's look at the 7 steps for roadmap to success. Write down your goal. Measure your progress. Manage the physical surroundings to eliminate the negative and accentuate whatever positive cues you want to put in there. Make sure you can think about an implementation intention. When I feel blank, then I will do blank. That will help. Share your goals with others. Remember, it's okay to stumble. And lastly, reward yourself. Reward yourself. Critically important. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen. That was a brief summary. We're almost up against time. We do have some time for questions. And I want to say, I'll put my glasses on, read any questions we might have. But next week's topic, we're going to talk about the subject. It's called Chasing Happiness. Important for everybody. And some tips on thinking about how you chase happiness and what, in a BrainSmart way, might be some things you want to consider. Okay. Let's see what we have here. Are there any questions on what we've covered? Yeah, so somebody said, let's see here. Somebody talked about making sure they pass the SMART test: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-based. My concern with quote unquote SMART goals, which prevail in academia and business, and if you don't know what a SMART goal is, just Google SMART, SMART goals in the internet and you'll find out what they mean. My concern with that is that too often they feel like they're written by the accounting department. And no offense if there's any accountants on the phone, but what they do is they sometimes lack meaning and most times lack inspiration or motivation. And so while there's some elements of SMART goals that I certainly endorse, like the specificity, that is the really crucial thing, then you have to also add in the things about meaningfulness and motivation. That would be my comment there. What to do if your support system isn't supportive of a goal but can't necessarily remove those? Not quite sure what mean by that question. Your support system isn't supportive of a goal. Again, your goal has to be important to you. You have to do whatever you can to minimize the physical surroundings, if those physical surroundings are things or people, just recognize that you are the person in control of your destiny. You are the person that matters, and the most important thing that you have to do in your life is to make yourself happy, because you can't make others in your life happy. You can't make a spouse happy, or a significant other happy, or a boss happy, or a coworker happy, or a child happy, unless you are happy. So the most important thing you have to do in your life is make sure you take care of yourself and make you happy. Great steps and tips. More going forward. Okay. Hopefully we answered that question. Any more questions? We have a few more minutes. I'll stick around. We have more time for more questions. Any comments? Throw the comments in there. Otherwise, we'll wrap up. Give it one more minute. Any more questions or comments? Please, feedback, dump it in there. Speaking of feedback, I asked people for some feedback, and I did get some very generous feedback on the Survey Planet link I sent out. And for those of you that are new to the call, I'm going to resend out the link with the recording notification. There is a $25 Amazon gift card available for providing feedback. For not to everyone, but just your chance to win a $25 Amazon gift card. And I'm going to close that after this weekend. So if you have any feedback and haven't had a chance to fill in that link from last year's sessions or from today's session, or suggestions moving forward, please do it, because after Sunday, I'm going to award the gift card and take all your feedback and try to make these sessions better for each of you that are taking the time, taking such valuable time out of your Friday to sit with me on these Neuro-Fitness Friday sessions. The other thing I'd like to ask you to do is reach out and try to recruit one person to join on next week's call. Just one person. If everybody on this call brought in one extra person, that would double the size. And if we, think about the exponential growth of this thing, that's the goal. I've gotten feedback that say these are incredibly helpful. My desire is to help as many people as we can. Help as many people as I can. So let's try to recruit and bring in people that you think would benefit from these calls, that would benefit from these suggestions on Neuro-Fitness Fridays, would it benefit from the stress reduction and benefit from the uplifting messages that we send, that I send to you and that we send to each other. So with that, if there's no more comments or questions, I'd like to close and say, hello Friday, hello goals, hello success. I'm ready for what's next. Thank you so much for the pleasure of your time, and I wish you all an awesome rest of the day and a fantastic weekend. Thank you.